Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Unique Arts. I'm your host, Costco Picasso. Today we're going to be doing. Sorry, my cat is meowing at me. Hopefully, that's not too audible and not too annoying if you can hear it. But today we're going to be doing another Celtic tale. This time we're going to be looking at a Breton tale from Brittany and, France. So it is the only Celtic nation of the main six Celtic nations that is not in the British Isles. It is on mainland Europe, and it is on the northwest peninsula, northwestern region of France. And today's tale, as you can probably tell from the title, is the Golden Basin and the Diamond Lance. So, this story, I've seen some people just call it a French tale, and you might see it called some different names. We do have the main character. His name is Peronnik, and I may not pronounce that correctly, of course, but Peronnik is sometimes called Peronnik the Fool or Peronnik the Simpleton. Sometimes if you see a story by that name, it is essentially the same story. I know there's a version by the Irish author George Moore. But regardless, Peronnik is our main character in this, and he is living in Brittany. And the backdrop is he must live near the city of Nantes, and Nantes is being currently besieged by the French, so food is scarce. A lot of people are hungry, including Peronnik. And so one day he meets a peasant woman, and she gives him the scraps of her porridge. He praises it so highly that she gives him some bread, praises that, so on and so forth. He pretty much gets a full meal because he's brown nosing this lady, and she keeps giving him more food. But while he is eating, a knight comes by and asks the peasant lady, saying, "This is the right way to Castle Cairglass, correct?" And she's like, "Yeah." So apparently, she lives on the border of Castle Cairglass, which is owned and controlled by a giant who is also a sorcerer, a wizard, named Roger. And he is in possession of a basin of gold. It's also sometimes just called the Golden Bowl, and the Diamond Lance. The basin of gold, if one is to drink from it, it will help one to, never go hungry, but it also is supposed to heal all your ails. And the Diamond Lance will defeat anyone and everything, pretty much. So you're invincible, essentially, if you have them. But he doesn't have them while he is in his house. He has them when he's out on his property, though. So the trick is you're supposed to find him at home, essentially. And then many noble knights have tried and all failed to seize them. There are several steps to doing this, and this knight who is passing by knows all the steps, but we can only assume he does not succeed. But that is, you go through a magic woods. After that, you meet an elf who has a dart that turns people to ash, and he is guarding an apple tree. So you need to pluck an apple from the tree. Then you need to find a flower that laughs, that it's guarded by a lion with a mane made of serpents. And then once you do that, you have to cross the 12 Dragon Lake, of course, guarded by 12 dragons. And then you have to fight the six-eyed man, who has a metal ball that he throws that never misses, and it automatically returns to him after he's thrown it. Then you have to cross through the Valley of Delights, which is just, gives you all manner of temptations to stop you. And then also you have to ford a river, and on the near side of this river there'll be a lady dressed in black, and you are to carry her across, and she will be the one that tells you. Now, I'm not sure how the knight knows all of this, or how some people know all of this. You would assume that's only happened because someone has done it, but obviously if someone has done it and survived to tell the tale, they might have the Diamond Lance and the Golden Basin, but obviously they're still in possession of the giant, with the exception perhaps of the giant's brother spilling the beans, because this is how Peronnik gets in. He ends up getting a job from the peasant woman's husband to be a cowhand for them. So he stays around. He sees the giant on occasion. Eventually is not scared of him. But one day, the giant's older brother, Brayek, is going to visit, and he sees him, and the Brayek says that even though he's a powerful sorcerer as well, he even gets lost in the woods. So he does this little spell, sings a song, and draws some circles in the ground or whatever, and sings a song for the colt of the. So of course the giant rides a giant horse, but the colt the baby follows them. But if he sings a song, the colt will come and get him, and the colt knows the way through the woods. And so Peronnik learns this, doesn't tell anyone. He, of course, devises his own plan involving the colt to go and get the treasure, essentially. And so when the giant is marching on the edge of his territory, as he does pretty frequently, he distracts the colt with some breadcrumbs and he sings the words, and the colt comes over to him. And he had made Peronnik had made a bridle of flax. He puts it on the colt, and the colt takes him automatically through the forest. He says it's terrifying, but he pretty much just covers his head, and it's fine. After that, he runs into the elf guarding the tree, and he convinces the elf that he has this snare to catch birds, perhaps feed himself along the way. And the elf is like, oh, okay, birds bother my tree all the time. Show me to use it, I guess, pretty much, so I can also know you're not lying, and then you can be on your way. But as he's setting up the snare, he had dipped it in holy water, and he just snares the elf instead, and the elf can't escape. And so he takes an apple and leaves. And then with glue and feathers in his bag, he convinces the lion to stick his head in the bag because he tells him that there are birds in there, essentially. And when the lion sticks his head in the bag, he closes it, puts the bag over the lion's head, and he takes the laughing flower that he's guarding and is on his way. Both these times, I guess I should say that the reason he isn't killed on sight is because he has the colt of the giant. And he's saying, oh, I'm just returning this. See, I have the colt of Roger, and I'm going to return it. And they're like, oh, okay, but they're still suspicious, and, so on and so forth. For the giants, he feeds them rosary beads from his rosary, and each one pops them up, eats them like a cherry, and then they die. All of them die, fall on their back and die. And then he hides in the woods and sings a song that puts all 6 eyes of the six-eyed man to sleep. He waited a little bit, and about 1 or 2 of the eyes fell asleep on their own, but then he sings a song to put the rest of them to sleep, so he can just go by. And then he finds the lady. As he is crossing with the lady, she tells him what to do. And, of course, that is what he will do as well. And that is to give the giant the apple. She says it will, help you, get the basin and the lance. And what happens is when he finds the giant, he's like, oh, why do you have my colt? He's like, oh, I'm here to return it, you awesome magician, you. Also, I got this apple. And I got the colt because your brother showed me how to, and I got this apple. It's a gift from him. And he takes the apple and eats it. He told him it would make his heart glad, essentially. But the giant takes the apple and it turns him into a dwarf. He said not even taller than the foot of Peronnik. And so he's able to go inside his house, his great house. He said there's over 50 doors. But he comes to a silver door where it's like, okay, this must be where the lance and the basin are kept. And the laughing flower's laughter, its thing, this was told to him by a lady again, opens all doors. So it opens the doors. He's able to seize the lance and the basin. And once he does, he immediately teleports back to the peasant woman's homestead. And once there, he heard that it was told that the king of the king of Brittany or something, perhaps, or just perhaps the region, if it's more similar to just Nantes, was told that he would make whoever saves Nantes his heir. And so he tells the crier who he hears that from to take him to the king. He gets the king's promise, essentially. And so he goes and liberates Nantes, revives lots of the men who had been weak or injured with the golden basin, and defeats everyone with the diamond lance. And he saves the kingdom, and then it just pretty much says, he had a lot of kids, and he gives them all their own kingdoms by the time he dies. The only problem is now for us current readers who really want to go find the golden basin and the diamond lance ourselves, they pretty much allude to it being lost, so it can't happen. Their excuse for why we wouldn't have it is because Rogier must have gotten it back somehow, although that's not explained. So, pretty magical story. I think some easy things to glean from this is really don't do things that you aren't prepared for, like many of the knights. Even if lots of the knights knew what was going to happen, they didn't have the means by where to succeed. Most of them, I don't think, really make it through the magic woods. In fact, he said he saw corpses right when he got out of the magic woods. So even if they did, they're immediately gunned down by the elf and his dart. And so most people aren't making it very far, even if they know the way. But it also shows that even some small, insignificant people, like a young boy, really can do things as long as they are wise. So even if he knew the way before, because he heard it from the knight, but he didn't actually do anything until he realized he had the means to do it, and that was when he got the colt in his possession, thanks to the sorcerer's brother. By the way, Very interesting. I think that perhaps this story could have a pretty interesting like psychoanalytic critique. I think that might be worth reading. If anyone decides to do that, go ahead and share it with me. I'd like to read it. But regardless, that's all I have for you today. There's your spoiler-filled review of the Golden Basin and the Diamond Lance, our Celtic tale from Brittany this time. And please, again, I guess, of course, feel free to like and subscribe. I really appreciate it. And I will see you guys next time. Thanks.